All right, next up, we've got Jeremy, who's going to tell us what he's learned after doing 98,818 WordPress updates. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hey, everybody. Can you hear me okay? It's a pleasure to be talking to the WordPress Sydney community. I've been to 3 Sydney WordCamps. There's so many smart people here I spoke to yesterday and today. My talk's only short, 15 minutes. And yeah, I know things are difficult with WordPress right now, but I hope it gets back to being good. But I think the community is what's awesome about you guys. So I've done a lot of WordPress updates, and I've got 5 tips on things I've learned that will make it easier for when you guys are, having to update WordPress. So does anybody know what yarn bombing is? Okay, it's more than I thought. So a little bit about me. That's what yarn bombing is. It's hippies that do knitting around trees and poles, right? I'm from Melbourne and I'm from a hippie area called Warrandyte. I run an agency called Sandhurst Digital. I'm a peace guy. This is my favourite movie. Can anybody get that? Yes. Come on, yell it out. Hey! Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm all about. I actually have that cardigan at home. I turned 45 recently. One of my mates got it for me on the internet. So yeah, I'm from Melbourne and I'm a WordPress nerd. I run an agency and the Yarra River comes through my area. I don't know what the equivalent would be in Sydney, but where I live, it's actually clean. And then by the time it gets into the city, it's like gross. So yeah, there's lots of plugins. I don't know if you saw Luke Carbis's talk this morning. He's in charge of plugin review, and there's new ones coming in every day. There's nearly 60,000 plugins now, and I think one of the things that made WordPress get so big and so widely adopted and so awesome is probably the plugins. There's so many things that they do to extend WordPress. It's amazing. We've all got our favourite plugins and all that kind of stuff. So I started off updating plugins and breaking sites all the time. I'm sure that's happened to probably most of us, right? And then eventually I got better at it and they started breaking less. And when you fail, I think that's how you learn. Lots of failures were with me. I fail all the time. I fail every day. Great Albert Einstein quote there, which is so true. And yeah, that's kind of how I learned a lot about updating plugins from failing. So there's this scary part in WordPress, what we've all seen, when you have to update a plugin and you're like, ugh. So there's like this dread feeling. And I'm hoping in my short talk today to help you guys and girls get around that dread. Okay, so now I'm getting into the 5 tips. 98,818 is a lot of plugins I've updated. And here is, if you pay attention to these next 5, they're pretty short and sweet. It'll make a difference for you guys doing updating. Okay, so the first tip is to make a staging site. Put your hand up if you know what a staging site is. Oh, everybody, great. Hosting makes it easy to do this now. It's usually just a click of a button, and you basically make a copy of your site, and you can muck that one up. And then your customers going to your real site or your prod site, they're not going to see the muck-ups. So it's best to, if you're going to break it somewhere, it's best to break it on staging. Now, tip number 2. So there's this thing in WordPress called WP Debug. Put your hand up if you use that. Okay, still maybe half. So it's really easy to turn on. I'll show you in the next slide how you do it. And it's like it's like a file of all the stuff that's happening below below the hood, I guess, that you can't really see when you load a WordPress site. And it gives you all a heap of information about deprecated functions, PHP fatals. Okay, so fatals is really bad. That's like when your site's crashed. But what you want to do is pay attention to this file because you should have it on all your staging sites. And then if that file is empty or not much in there, that's a sign of a happy site. So how do you turn it on? It's in the WP config file, which is in the root directory of all WordPress sites. You can just turn it on with that first line. That turns it on, that's enough. But then I usually turn these other things on because it gives it like more power. And it puts a log file in your wp-content directory. So it's really useful and it's included in WordPress and it's a great tool to master. Okay, tip 3. So you got your staging site, you got your debug turned on. Now start doing updates but go slow. Just one at a time. Don't just click everything at once, just go slow. And you should be loading your site between doing each update. A good tip here is have a little checklist. So say you can have a checklist of a site that's got a shop page, right? Or a contact form, a contact us page with a gravity form. You really want to test those key pages, not just the front page. Then you can really see, okay, I've updated the plugins, and I've gone through my checklist and, the site's happy. Okay, so that's already 60% of my tips gone, so it's a short talk. Okay, number 4, the white screen of death. Put your hand up if you've seen this. Okay, a lot. All right, that's probably 80%. So you're going to see this when you're doing updates. It's just how it is. It's basically, I don't know if you're any Windows nerds here, but they had the blue screen of death. WordPress has a white one. And don't worry, if you've turned on WP debug, and my other tip, you can kind of get around this one. Like I'm saying here, there's that log file in WP content, and it'll tell you why you're getting the white screen of death and which plugin is maybe conflicting. It'll give you information. And then there's another tip here, tip number 5. This is, if you're really stuck with a white screen of death, this is like another trick. You go into your WP content folder and there's a plugins directory. If your site is like white screen of death and it's really screwed up, and remember I said this should be on a staging site, you can just rename that plugins folder to plugins_new, and the site will then load again. You'll get out of that white screen of death, and then you have to turn your plugins back on. You have to actually rename it back to the plugins folder. But it's like a way it kind of resets, the WordPress loading sequence. So they're my 5 tips. If you follow them, updating WordPress is not very scary. Happy days, respect to the fonts. Hey! Okay, so if you don't do maintenance, you kind of need to be doing maintenance. I don't know if you saw the WP Mavens talk yesterday. They've got some great maintenance packages. A lot of us people working WordPress monetize the maintenance side of it, and it's big business. But if you don't actually do maintenance, so when you're updating plugins, what are you doing? Well, you're getting new functionality, you're getting bug fixes, but they're fixing security vulnerabilities, right? WordPress is 44% of the web, and there's always new security things happening every day. So by updating your plugins, you're keeping all those patches and you're keeping on top of everything. Now, if you don't do it, the baddies, your site has holes in it, basically, and the baddies will get in. And they're going to do bad stuff. They're not going to do nice things. They're going to put Viagra links and junk in your site, right? So then your site is sitting there with bad stuff, and then Google comes and crawls it regularly, and it finds the bad stuff, and then it gives you this lovely red screen of death. There's lots of screens of death in my talk. So then you can click on JB Hi-Fi in Google in the SERPs and go there and see this, right? And then Google basically spanks you, it stuffs up your SEO. So yeah, you pretty much have to do maintenance. Okay, so I've got some t-shirts here. The koala thing I'll get to in a minute. But I wanted to ask the audience, what do you guys think is the scariest plugin to update? Oh, everyone's gone quiet now. Yeah, I agree. Elementor's pretty scary. I think it's this one. I'm not bagging WooCommerce, I love it. But if you haven't customized WooCommerce in the child theme folder following WordPress best practices, when you update it, you can lose all your customizations. So, yeah, pretty scary. Okay, so I learned a lot from doing a lot of updates, then started selling maintenance plans, and then got some big customers. Me and my kids love Bluey, so there's a Bluey reference. But basically, all this stuff, there's more to it than those 5 tips. There's visual regression testing, there's uptime monitoring, there's heaps of stuff. So kind of what I learned, which is what this talk's about, kind of grabbed that knowledge, and this is where the koala comes into it. We're a maintenance product built in Melbourne, kind of like a managed WP that GoDaddy has, but much faster and much more modern. So we have all that stuff in my tips and plus other stuff in the product. And that's my talk. I don't know if I ran over or under, but I've got a shout out first. Some Aussie legends are here this weekend. Wordify. Are you here, Daniel? Yep. Put your hand up, this guy. Is anybody using Wordify? Okay, there's a few people. I've got about 100 sites on Wordify. They're a Sydney, awesome Sydney host that's not owned by any private equity. Nothing like that. So yeah, they're one of the sponsors this weekend. Prosperity Media, they're an SEO agency in Sydney here that have big clients like Westpac and stuff. And my agency, Sandhurst Digital, does a lot of like their dev. You guys can add me here. There's a deal in the middle. If you want to get Koala Boss, you can get double the amount of free sites that we normally give you. So thank you.
Take questions if that's all right.
Yeah.
You can follow him.
Go that way.
Thanks, Jeremy. That was great. Again, we've got just a couple of minutes for questions while we swap over, but we are going to try and have some time for Q&A for all speakers at the end. So does anyone have a question for Jeremy?
Hi, this is probably a really obvious question, but how often should you check your sites for maintenance? How just do a check of everything?
Yeah, we have a weekly check that some clients want. That's kind of the most frequent one. Then there's like fortnightly and monthly. Those 3 are kind of the standard, I'd say. And that if you're checking every week, you're pretty across it.
I'm going to steal that. And so hopefully we'll have some time at the end. A big round of applause for Jeremy. Thanks, Jeremy. That was wonderful.